this next section, we're going to talk to Jennilynne about the history of hemp. I understand that you've done some extensive research and have some fascinating facts about hemp, even here in this country.
Absolutely.
All right, what did you find?
So some of the earliest uses of hemp, both medicinally and broader, were actually traced back to China. And the earliest uses here in the U.S. were actually industrial uses that trace back to the 1600s.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Now, by industrial, you mean as in
uses other than for what we typically think of. So textiles, construction, paper, clothing, those sorts of things. So
you can buy hemp clothing today. I mean,
you can.
Yes.
There are over 52,000 uses and benefits of the industrial hemp plant.
What a wonderful renewable resource.
It's an incredible renewable resource. So it came over in, with early European settlers.
So they actually brought it to the country.
Yes.
It wasn't naturally grown here. It was something that was an imported crop.
Correct.
Fascinating.
It was brought over. Once upon a time, it actually was mandatory for farmers to grow hemp. In the U.S., it actually was illegal for them not to grow hemp.
Much like tobacco. We had hemp and tobacco. Fascinating.
Exactly. And at one point in time, it actually could be used as currency, just like the dollar bill is used today.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Our Declaration of Independence, the first version of it, was drafted on hemp paper.
Wow.
Yes. And Henry Ford actually built the first Model T out of hemp. It's stronger and lighter than steel. And he built it to run on hemp biofuel.
Oh my gosh. Wow, they didn't teach me that in American history.
Probably not.
That's interesting. So we've had hemp around since the 1600s. When did it disappear as a crop here in the country?
So in 1937, there was a bill passed called the Marijuana Tax Act. And what happened is it actually made the taxes too high to continue to grow hemp in this country. So it put the farmers out of business, and that's when it actually disappeared from our natural food supply.
And they switched to a different type of crop at that time.
Yes. I mean, they were growing other crops as well, because hemp is actually a great soil remediator.
That's what I've read.
It's a great rotational crop for other plants.
And it grows fast, doesn't it?
It grows extremely fast. It takes very little water, deposits a lot of minerals and nutrients into the soil. But because the taxes were so high, the farmers could no longer afford to grow hemp.
So I can make all kinds of personal opinions around why that may have happened, but is there anything that you read in the history to give us an idea of why we did this?
Well, there's a lot of different theories out there, but who really knows all of the motivating political factors behind why that happened? Essentially, though, it did remove it from our natural food supply, so the animals were no longer consuming it, which we were at that time eating the animals, and getting the CBD oil essentially from the hemp into our bodies naturally through our food supply.
Yeah, it would be better than a hay crop, I would think.
Absolutely.
Now, other countries didn't do that, so we still saw countries around the world. Europe, I know, is a big producer of hemp.
They are.
And they have been, obviously, if the Europeans brought it over, it's been a crop there for hundreds and hundreds of years.
It has. And actually, all of the hemp that is brought into this country now that is still legal, it has to be imported either from Europe or Canada.
Yep. Interesting. So, how did you... when did it start to show back up as a vogue? I mean, CBD oil right now is kind of like a rage. The reason I'm fascinated talking to you is, as I did my research, you find a lot of articles and a lot of information about CBD now and the benefits thereof.
You do, actually. And in the 1980s is when doctors actually discovered our body's endocannabinoid system. Okay,
Fascinating.
It's our body's largest self-regulatory system. And it's been a huge scientific and medical discovery.
So in other words, there's been medical research going on. It's just now kind of 35 years later breaking through to the public?
Exactly.
Fascinating.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. We think that at this point there are the research companies that are based here in the U.S.? This is why you'll find some universities growing hemp but not marijuana, right?
Correct. So there are some states that have passed laws allowing for those research studies to start to be done on the industrial uses of hemp. So they're doing testing programs and whatnot now because it is still not legal to be grown federally in the country.
Interesting. So now industrial, when we talk 1600s, were the textiles, things like that. Today, industrial would include food supplements, right?
It would include food supplements. It would include beauty products, which also were being made back then before it was essentially outlawed through the Marijuana Tax Act as well. Clothing, paper, biofuels.
So a lot of uses for it.
A lot of different uses for it.
And I'm most fascinated with how it replenishes the soil. If you think about the fact that we've depleted our soil, a lot of our farmlands, it would be a fascinating crop. Maybe to bring back to the U.S.
Absolutely, especially to really clean up our soils.
Is there work being done on that? Are you aware of?
I know that there's a couple of different programs where they're starting to do some research and take a look at that here.
And running some experiments on depleted soils to see how it works. That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that history. I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely.